Welcome back. This is the Steve Malzberg Show, and I'm George Mullen, subbing for Steve tonight. Our next segment is a panel again. Our guests are John Gizzi, who was with us earlier this evening. He's the chief Washington columnist and White House correspondent for Newsmax. And our other guest tonight is Grace Marie Turner, who is president of the Galen Institute. Welcome, both of you, to our show tonight.
Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening, George.
Grace, John, always good to hear you. John and I are old friends, Grace. I've known him. I've listened. When he calls you on the phone and says, I need 5 minutes of your time, put your feet up on your desk and expect it to go for an hour. But Grace Marie, let me ask you first of all, before we get into some issues today, what is the Galen Institute? It's a think tank. What exactly is your specialty?
We actually are sort of a boutique think tank. We specialize only in health policy and particularly promote free market ideas in the health sector. We've been around for about 20 years, and we're fighting the battles against Hillary Care. And several of my colleagues and I have written a book available on HarperCollins called Why Obamacare is Wrong for America. But we also offer lots of very positive solutions about how we can move forward with the right kind of health reform.
Well, let's start then with Obamacare. You know, I don't know about you, but I've heard horror stories from people, colleagues of mine, people I know for years, showing me their letters of cancellation. And what we're discovering is, in some cases, the individuals who had to go to the exchanges, they may be paying the same premium in some cases, what they had previously, but the deductions are going up. One case, a very good friend of mine, she's a single mother of two. Her deductions were $200 for each of them for a total of $600. Now it's $3,500 per person. I run a company where we're being told my cycle is up in March. I'll know in a couple of weeks, where our premiums for the kind of policy we had, a Cadillac policy, which has been canceled, eliminated, could go up 25 to 50%. So are these the kind of horror stories we're hearing? And do you think because of this, Obamacare can collapse under its own weight? Grace Marie.
I am hearing stories from all over the country. The first wave of coverage losses were among those with individual policies that didn't comply with Obamacare, therefore they had to be replaced starting January 1. This next wave involves small employers. We're being told that in order to be able to comply with Obamacare, they have to cover a broad new range of benefits, meet all sorts of other specifications, and you hear of people having 10, 20, even 50 or 60% premium increases in addition to much higher deductibles, just as people are experiencing in the exchanges, where they have the average deductible in the exchanges is $4,000, which means that people have to pay $4,000 every year out of their own pocket, even before the insurance triggers in. And for many people, they're finding that the policies themselves may cost $1,000 a month. And they're just throwing up their hands and saying, this is not helping. How can you possibly call this the Affordable Care Act when all it's doing is increasing our premiums?
Well, John Gizzi, let me ask you this. In light of what was just said, it's like property taxes going up. People get their property tax bill, as I do in Long Island, and my school taxes are up 10%. I was irate over this. It's been averaging 8 to 10% a year for the last dozen years or so. You know, you feel it in your pocket. When it comes to your insurance premiums, that too you feel in your pocket. So do you think, you know, keeping your ear to the ground on politics, do you think this is going to be a groundswell and that these people will come out en masse in November to vote out the Democrats? Do you think that's possible?
Absolutely, and I can already give some examples of it. In Virginia, polls show the Democratic candidate for governor last year, Terry McAuliffe, an easy winner. I wrote about several tracking surveys at the end that had him a big winner and the Libertarian coming on strong. In the twilight days of the campaign, Republican Ken Cuccinelli made the race into a referendum on Obamacare, and this was just as some of the reports that we were talking about were coming out, about people's policies being canceled, about the cost skyrocketing, and guess what? Mr. Cuccinelli only lost by a whisker. Now today, and you certainly know Pennsylvania, George, Governor Tom Corbett is staking his reelection on it being, guess what, a referendum on Obamacare, because he expects his opponent to be Congresswoman Allison Schwartz, who helped write the Affordable Care Act. Listen, let me add one postscript to it. Bill Clinton once said that the Affordable Care Act or the Unaffordable Care Act would stand or fall on the basis of how many of the young invincibles signed up for the health care plan. As of 2 weeks ago, 24% of those who had signed up at the healthcare.gov exchange were between the ages of 18 and 32. The figures are ominous.
Well, you know, it's interesting. In addition to that, as you probably know, Grace Murray, all the old actuarial tables have been thrown out. You know, I run a small company under 50 employees. I had to hire a consultant to advise me. I never had to think about it. I've spent more time the last couple of months trying to figure this out than I've spent in the last 15 years I've been running this company. But once again, it's being priced month by month. I will not be told, my cycle begins March 1st, I won't be told my prices for another week or so, because every month it's changing, even though you may be getting Plan A, the same as the same guy who got another company Plan A a month ago. In addition, I've been told that no longer can there be group charges where a family of, somebody who has 2 or 3 kids, husband and wife, next one has 4 kids, same premiums. Now it's going to be ages of the parents. Kids are basically fixed through age 17, about $120 a month. So everyone's policies are going to be looking different in the sense in terms of the payment schedules. And so again, is this adding into the madness here? Are a lot of people what are you hearing? A small business is just confused? Do they know what they're doing? Or are they just running to the hills?
They're completely bewildered, and thank heavens for the insurance agents and brokers that are really sticking with this and trying to help their employers navigate their way through this incredible maze of Obamacare. But they're limited in the options that they can offer. But yes, and I think actually the death spiral, having young people not enrolling Obamacare, they would have maybe thought that it would be a good idea to not charge them much more than their actuarial costs are likely to be. But I think you're starting to see a much, much greater wave of people that are being hurt actively by this law. There was a recent study out showing that there are 4 people that are hurt for every 1 that is helped by Obamacare. Those are very, very bad ratios. And if you start to see more and more people hurt, and the president in his State of the Union address the other night was just almost belligerent. First of all, he was not helping Senate Democrats who were desperate for him to say something that will really help solve and ease the calm the fears of so many of these tens of millions of people that are fearing losing their coverage and higher premiums that they can't afford. But he also didn't offer anything from this perspective of how he is hoping to change it and understanding how people are being hurt by this law. He pointed to 1 person who's being helped. Of course there are people being hurt, but if you wind up with 4 being harmed for every 1 that is helped, that is not a law that is going to work for America.
Well, John Gizzi, in light of that, what are you hearing? I assume you were there for the State of the Union address. What was the reaction, particularly from Democrats? What are you hearing from that side of the aisle?
Democrats are usually very, very reticent, George, in voicing what they really think when it comes to a president of their own party. Now, I have a feeling this is going to change because you've seen 4 Democratic senators from the South, from red states, who face the electorate and who have faithfully stood by the president in opposing efforts to delay Obamacare or even defund it, and all the while they're trailing in the polls. Let me give you one example. Mary Landrieu, 3-term senator who was a key player in the initial enactment of the Affordable Care Act in the Senate, is now running behind her opponent, Congressman Bill Cassidy, Republican, and himself a physician, by 44 to 40%. Think about it for a minute. A 3-term Democratic senator with a name that's well known in the Pelican State. Her father was mayor of New Orleans. Her brother is the current mayor of New Orleans. And she's trailing a little-known House member, albeit an able person, by 4 percentage points, 10 months away from the election.
Well, that's interesting. Grace Murray, quick one. We got about 40 seconds left.
And he means it.
Yeah, Mark Rubio is peddling this bill, or pushing this bill, pursuing the bill, to cut out any bailouts to the insurance companies. Do you think this is going to have any legs?
I would really hate to see Republicans fall on their sword over this, because taxpayers are on the hook for a bailout either way. Either they do it through the mechanism set up, this complicated mechanism of Obamacare, or they're going to pay for higher subsidies, because if they don't have, the insurance companies don't have the bailout money, then the premiums are going to go up, and taxpayers are on the hook for a big part, and sometimes a very big part, of those subsidies. So taxpayers are going to pay either way. I would much rather see Republicans talk about the employer mandate, the individual mandate, the rules and regulations that are affecting real people in real time, rather than something that's obscure and that's really not going to solve the problem.
Grace Marie, thank you very much. We're running out of time. I want to thank you and John Gizzi for joining us. Coming up in the next segment will be the founder of the Federalist magazine, Sean Davis. I'm George Mullen. See you in a minute.
The Steve Malzberg Show.